Welcome to the Love Kanika podcast. My name is Kanika. My name is Vanita.
And we are back on time for another show. If you are new to my channel, which you probably are, it's kind of the new podcast and going about a year now. Welcome. And if you don't mind subscribing and also liking the video, because we are trying to build out our audience, so we definitely appreciate the support and the love. So thank you. So tonight, as you can see, we are joined by a guest. Our friends are here to kind of chop it up with us tonight. Um, about a subject that Lou and I um have talked about over the years, but really kind of talked about a month ago. So I'm gonna give you the scenario and kind of tell you how it relates to what Lou and I talked about, and then I'll let him explain. Welcome, Lou. Thank you for
Hey,
joining
what's up?
me.
Good to see everybody.
I'll let
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Hey,
him
same to you.
kind of explain and ask any questions for us women because he has some questions for us, kind of about us and how we raising these boys and these kids. So the scenario is I met the perfect man and he wants to marry me, but he will only do it on one condition. I have to kick my 26 and 27-year-old sons out of the house. Now, so how does this relate to the overall topic? It's been said that we as women coddle our boys, our kids, a little bit too much, almost to the detriment of them becoming men. So I wanted to get on here and kind of talk about it. Particularly, I don't have any kids. So I really can't get a lot of insight. I don't know what it feels like to be a mom and to have that responsibility and that love and all of that. So I wanted to bring on some mothers. Lily's another, Karina's another, Vanita's a mother to kind of, have this discussion and try to get an understanding on this situation from everybody's perspective. So Lou, can you kind of give us a little bit of background of what you're seeing when you're dating that, caused you and I to kind of have this conversation about a month ago?
Um, so when I was on the dating scene, I'm off the dating scene now.
Right.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I would
That's what's up.
full
Mhm.
disclosure. I would run into women who had sons primarily, and they weren't really held accountable to things. There was always deferment to these young men in different scenarios, whether it be he can't be at home but so long by himself. Um, he didn't have plans for the future. I would say three of them, the boys were in high school, at least high school, and so that just brought about questions to me about how these young black boys were being raised, and I can fast forward it to some grown men that I know that are still dependent upon their mother, right?
Right.
And I think it extends from how they were treated in their teen years going to their man years. And you all, women on the panel, I know for sure some of you all, if y'all met a guy and y'all have general conversation and you ask a general question about where he generally lives, and he says, I live with my mother. If he don't have a dissertation behind that, oh my God. Because the first thing y'all gonna do is get on the phone. Girl, you know he here with his mama. And that's a whole nother can of worms from that point. If he don't have a dissertation, his mama better be paraplegic, COPD, and the doctor told her she got 3 months to live. Anything short of something like that, y'all gonna be like, girl, he live with his mama. That's my intro. I'll get more into it as we go along.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody want to kind of reply to why that might be, or what it, as a mother, uh, particularly the boys, most of the time raising them primarily alone, what do you think is behind that? And I'll start with Lee Allison. You're on mute, Lily.
Okay, so I do have a older son who does not live with me, and he moved out when he was 21. However, I cried when he moved out because I didn't really want him to at the time, but that's just the mother's love. But he is I raised him to be to have values and to be independent, and he won't come back home for nothing. He won't depend on me for nothing. He won't take money from me. If I try to help him out with anything, he won't take it from me. So I think it does have a lot to do with how you raise your children, and he struggles sometimes, sometimes he struggles, but he still won't depend on me. He doesn't depend on me. He does well for himself now, but even when he was a lot younger, when he was a little bit younger, he still wouldn't want me to help him. So I agree with you as far as him saying that it goes back to the teenage years and how you raise them up.
Okay. Definitely. All right. Vanita?
I don't have sons. I have a daughter, but I do think that it's imperative that we raise them to be independent, as opposed to codependent on you. Because at the end of the day, one thing's for sure, we're all going to leave this earth at some point in time, and you don't know when that is going to be. So you will want to raise them to be able to survive without you.
What does that mean? Give me an example of what that looks like.
Surviving without you?
Yeah, like when you raising them, you instill what in them to be self-sufficient, just in case something happened. To give me some examples of something that you would do as another. Let's just say they turn, I don't know, between 16 and 18. You're teaching them what?
First of all, thought process. I'm not giving you the answer to anything. If you are coming and asking me, what should I do with this? My question back to you is, what do you think you should do? And why do you think you should do it?
Yeah.
So thought process, first of all. Second of all, knowing how to control your finances. If you're giving your kids allowance, they shouldn't just be blowing through the allowance. They need to strategically spend that money and understand what that is. Being able to wash your own clothes. That should be instilled in the kids way before 16. Actually, it is my thought process on it. Being able to figure out how to get from point A to point B. Back in our days, we didn't have Uber and Lyft. You should be able to Uber and Lyft on your own. That shouldn't be no huge task. Cooking without always having to go out to eat. Budgeting. Especially if you plan on having your kids go off to college. It's no eating out every single day. That's expensive. You need to know how to take $20 and make it work for you at least 3 to 4 days on a meal.
Yeah.
So things of that sort is what I say.
Those are good. Go ahead, Lee.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, and when they're old enough, especially boys, I don't have girls, but when they're old enough to get a job, they should be out there working. I don't care if it's the weekends or what. And because the things that they want in life, shoes, material stuff, if you want these things, you old enough, go out and get a job. That way you teach them the value of work.
Exactly.
And then also you have to show your kids outside of where they stay so they'll want more. If you're a parent that stay in the hood, then try to take them outside of the hood so that those kids will want more and they'll work for more. And I think that's it. That's part of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep. Okay. This topic, before shows, I like to do a little pre-announcement on Facebook of what the show topic gonna be. And boy, did this topic garner a lot of comments, right? So during the show, let's kind of read some of the comments that I got on on my Facebook, and then I'll let y'all respond. But before I do that, I'm gonna go to Karina. So Karina, you being another of an adult son. Now he's an adult son. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm in agreement with what Vanita says as far as having them budget and money. And it's just with each child, with a child is different. Because my son, he wanted to work from like 14, 15. I was like, nah, boy, because I know how you are with school. I need you to finish school. I need you to focus and concentrate on school. Because I know if he would have went out there, worked, whatever, and stuff like that, he probably had to turn around and say, okay, I like this money. Let me turn around and just say, I'm making, no, boo. I need you to finish school. And I only say that because of the simple fact that was instilled in like my mother and my father. My mother didn't want me to work while I was going to school. She was like, look, you got enough to worry about. Why don't you just go to school? And I fought my mother to go to work. When I finally went to work, it was like, okay, I'm going to show her. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it was just like, it's like my son right now, he's 20. And he is dying to run the hell out of my house. I don't have no problem with that. My whole thing is like, he wants things situated a certain way. And like Lily was saying, like, okay, if your kid doesn't know, take him out of the hood. I live in one of the most expensive places in Georgia.
You do.
So when my son sees all his friends having all those things, I tell him, I said, look, we live in Alpharetta. Why? Because I want you to go to some of the best schools. I need you to know how to interact with those type of people. We don't have many like them. I'm not afraid to say it, ashamed to say it. Look, we ain't got it like that. But we got what we got. So, I mean, in the sense of my son, I don't know if sometimes I think about am I teaching him the right things? I mean, he wants to run and get out the house, but he wants everything to be like, okay, I need it to be this way. I need it to be that way. I need it to be A, B, C, and D. And I need it to be all in a row. And I need it to be dots and then dashes. It's like, that's not how it works. And I try to tell him, like, when it's time for you to go and you leave, it's just time for you to go. You can have it two ways. I can, as parents, the kid can get to the point where you just be like, you know what, get the fuck out of my house. Or you can be like, all right, it's time for you to go. A lot of people think I attached the umbilical cord to my son, but I haven't done that since he was 5 years old, and I let him go outside and play by himself in kindergarten. Because I was like, yo, I know you know the rules, you know what you're supposed to do. So, but I agree with Vanita and them, Lily, as far as taking your kid outside to see something else different than, where you live.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, I was going to ask Lou, what do you think about what Karina said about her son wanting to kind of run the house and want it this way, and that way? As a father of a successful young Black man who's now an attorney, what would you say to her about the situation with her son as a Black father?
Tanika, wait. I don't mean like he wants to run my house.
Oh, we know what you mean. We know what you mean. Yeah, we know what you mean. We know what you mean. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, run the house? No, that's me.
For me, growing up, I'll give you a little background. My mom had me do everything around the house. From she showed me how to flip the pork chop, to vacuuming, to washing the cars outside, to yard work, to putting Windex on mirrors, right? And so when I was in high school, I too wanted a job. And so the agreement was you can get a job only on the weekends. That's how it started, right? And of course, when I got my first little taste of the money, I'm like, "Woo, I like this." But the school still stayed the focal point, right?
Yeah.
So when my son came along, it was the same scenario. He had stuff to do around the house, not as much as I had to do, but he had some things to do. And then he got his first little job, on the weekends. And for me, I always wanted for him to grow into be a man that was self-sufficient, had his own, but he knew how to do these different things. We spoke about that earlier. Like he can catch an Uber, right? He can fix him, some breakfast or make him something to eat, so on and so forth. He can do these things. But I wanted him not to be dependent or look at a woman as if she's supposed to do these things for him. So if he ever decided to get married, he's in relationships, whatever. He's an asset to the relationship and not a liability, right? She can't look at him and say, "Yeah, girl, he gotta come stay with me," or "He gotta drive my car." Any of those things, right? So everything I did was a process to get him in a position where he can make informed decisions about his life going forward, and he would be the prize.
That's good.
He's the prize.
I think the problem we are seeing, because there's a big, there is a perception that a lot of young Black men aren't up to par as far as being viable mates. I've heard that, on different platforms around the internet. And I hear Nian in our community saying, "Well, look who raised us. Y'all did this. You dated us. You courted us. You did this and that, or didn't do this and that." So my question, I'll start with Vanita. How do you reconcile being, I don't want to say hard on your kids, but putting boundaries and expectations on your kids, such as if you meet the perfect man and you have a grown kid in the house with 25, 20, whatever, around that age, how do you reconcile telling your child, or would you even do it? I guess that would be the question, that, hey, you got X amount of time, or you need to be doing this, or you need, I'll give you a year to get your stuff together. You got to get out of the house. You got to move out. Of course, you ain't going to say because I'm getting married, but just saying you got to move out with your heart and how you feel about your child. Would you even put that on your child? Would you even say that to your child? If you met someone, you fell in love, y'all's going to get married, that he says, "Look, I'm not taking no grown kids into this new relationship. They need to get their own house or apartment, whatever." How would you handle that, Vanita?
For me, it's something that Karina did say that I definitely agree with, is each child is different.
Yes.
For me, it's imperative to sit down and understand what the plan is. As an adult, we always have a plan, do we not? You got a plan to pay your bills. You got a plan to work. There's always some kind of plan. So I want to know, with that child, what's your plan? Because there's nowhere in this world besides under a bridge and outside that you can live for free.
That's correct.
So what is your plan, and what is it that you're trying to accomplish and do? So that's the first thing where I'm going with it. And depending on what the individual says, what the child says, we have to strategize. I can help you up to a point, but you got to know how to help yourself. So my plan, which I perceive it should have been done early on before they hit this 26 and 27 age, it should have been discussed, instilled, understood. And don't get me wrong, kids are humans. So we tend to shift at times, and that's okay. But what's your plan in that shift?
I can understand
What,
that.
you know, what's your end goal? You know, if as you were coming up, you planned on going to college, but once you hit high school, it's not really, you know, feeling real good to you.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, what's the next plan?
Can I say
What-
something?
Sure, go ahead. Luke.
So some of those ladies I was speaking of before,
Mhm.
the kids in high school,
Mhm.
and they didn't. You know, if you ask the general question, say, so is he going to college? Nah, college ain't for him. Okay, cool. Because again, each child is different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is he going to the military? Nah. Okay. Is he
Okay.
going to McDonald's?
Exactly.
And there was no set thing. And when there's not a set thing, he, a young man, you can't let him just be idle.
I agree with that.
He can't just be idle. He can't just be hanging out. Like he got to find himself. Well, he needs to find himself at McDonald's. He needs to find himself digging a ditch while he's finding himself. He can't be
Exactly. And that's not just for the young men, for ladies too.
It's not. I know. We were talking about.
No,
boys.
I got you, but I'm saying for the audience, this ain't just towards, you know, little boy. This is for girls as well.
Yeah.
Your plot in life is not to just lay up and get pregnant.
It
No.
needs to happen. And so, like, I left my mom's house officially at 21, and I haven't been back since. Now, in the midst of all of that and finding myself, I joined the military. I've eaten noodles. My first place was a trailer with red carpet. You got to go through your go-through to get where you're going. And you will only appreciate it when you come on the back end, when you have done all of these things by yourself. And when you present yourself, and when you, while you're doing all these things, when you run into these women, they will recognize it and be like, man, that guy right there, he really got his stuff together. But by that time, right?
I think the issue is, Lou, women and others, it's a fine balance between that I think a lot of others have. And this is just the conversations I've had with a lot of moms. Others carry a deep guilt. Deep guilt.
Deep
I mean,
guilt.
So I've had others tell me they feel guilty for buying themselves some shoes that they need to work because they feel like that money should have went to the children. So in saying that, it's hard for a lot of women to reconcile, because if you sound at the perfect man and I want to marry him, and you the one that wants to do it, and on the woman's mind, she's like, she's fighting with the notion of choosing herself, because society has told women that when you're a mother, you sacrifice your life, you sacrifice for your kid, you sacrifice. And I think women have bought into that. And a lot of it is just, it really is the love for your child. But a lot of women also have bought into the notion that when you have the child, it's all about the child. All this, even grown kids, you sacrifice, you beat after them, you do this and you do that, even if it's causing you your own happiness. So I think a lot of women, to what you're saying, Lou, it sounds good, the making that happen. I don't think a lot are going to have that in them to say, look, you got 8 months to get your shit together and get out of my, like, I just don't see.
And you're right, but I will also say that you want to start at the beginning, because guilt is real. I had guilt. I had guilt when it came to buying clothes and shoes and things of that sort. But when those thoughts came in, I had to stop myself and say, well, is she lacking for clothes? Well, is she lacking for trips? Because she's been on quite a few trips herself and I haven't been nowhere. Is there food on the table? Anything that she needs? is there and beyond what she needs is there. So why wouldn't it be okay for me to go ahead and buy myself these shoes? Why wouldn't it be okay for me to go ahead and buy myself them clothes? So you have to start with the small things like that to get to a place of when this particular scenario comes up where a husband comes in and says this. Women have to learn how to set boundaries and choose self, and it's okay. Because you're right, society is saying everything is supposed to be for everybody else, and F you.
Yeah.
We have to change that thought process and that narrative.
And that's real talk. And particularly when it comes to, when they're minor, they depend on you for, this and that other. But when they get grown, and you've done your due diligence, if your child isn't disabled or sick or something where you have to, the child depends on you, even as an adult, that's different. But when you got grown kids in the house and they even working and it's like, at what point do you set boundaries? I mean, for yourself, for your sanity, for your own happiness, a lot of women spend their entire life taking care of people. Kids,
and for the growth
family,
of the
parents.
kids.
Yeah, it's for the
For
growth,
the growth of the kids too. So it's not just about the woman, it's also about that child.
Yeah.
We talk about within the society that we want the society to become better. This is how you help society become better.
Yeah, I think it's what you said though, Vanita, just dealing with the guilt of it all. Again, I don't know what that feels, but I've seen it all around me, even in small stuff like buying shoes, working through that guilt and knowing that it's okay to do some stuff for yourself. It's okay to choose you, particularly when your kids are grown, because what if you left the earth tomorrow, they would have to figure it out. Am I right or wrong? If y'all left the earth tomorrow, your grown child will have to figure it out.
But you have to learn to start when they're young. You can't start when they're a teenager. I mean, literally, when they're 5 years old, when your kids are 2 and they're old enough to put their own toys in the toy box, you shouldn't be down picking up their toys, putting them in the toy box for them, because that's teaching them independence right then when they're 2 or 3, when they're old enough to walk. And you got to start when they're young, because you can't wait till they're 16, 17 years old and say, hey, you got to go get a job, or you got to pay for your own. You want all this extra stuff, you got to pay, because when they're able to work on the weekends, of course, they got to keep their school together. But when they're able to work on the weekends and start buying their own stuff, then they learn the value of $1. Mm-hmm. So they expecting you to go buy their $200 shoes, and you buying them, they don't know the value of $1. But when they work and they check $256 because they only working on weekends, now they want these $200 shoes. They're gonna think twice about getting those $200 shoes.
And
so
they do. Yeah.
Okay. I will.
Teaching them the value of work ethic, and then you teaching them the value of what money means. So you already have to teach them respect by one, who you bring into their life when they're younger.
Absolutely.
So if they see somebody treating you bad, they're gonna go back and think it's okay. You have to raise your kids from when they're babies on up the way you want them to become as adults. Now, when they get in adult life, what they choose is what they choose, but you already instilled it in them. And 9 times out of 10, when you instill it in them, that's the way they're going to act in life.
And that's very true, because even I saw this this Instagram video. These babies couldn't even talk. Looked like they had just learned how to walk, because you could tell how they was waddling. But it was some twins. I know they had to be maybe less than one, maybe 10 months. But anyway, I heard the daddy said, go get them toys and put them in that basket. These little babies ran and got the toys off the floor and put them. They could walk, but they knew what their daddy was talking about, because he's training them young, to be self-sufficient, even as babies. W. O'Neill 75 Fat Boy says that's why it's important. That's why man's presence in the home is important, but only if it's respected. Lou and I talk about this too. bringing men in the house and a stepfather, a new man, and teaching the boys how to respect. A lot of times, you bring another man in the house, the child will look at that man's side eye like, you're not my daddy. You know, I ain't gonna listen to you. So that's another thing that I don't know. Women don't think about it or whatever, and you can't really. If your kid don't like them, then you can't make your kid like them. You know, that's how it feels. But I think that happens too a lot. While a lot of men are kind of weary when entering relationships, because sometimes the boys don't really respect it. And then Lou told me that even when men try to step in and guide the boys, because they ain't had no father figure to really guide them, women get mad. The mothers get mad and be like, "You're not gonna discipline my child. Or you're not gonna do this or that." Am I right, Lou?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fine to do certain things, little Johnny, but I don't want you to discipline little Johnny. And I'm not even talking about like in a physical way. I'm talking about like, hey, I'm gonna take the iPad, or he shouldn't have the phone, or whatever that is. You try to discipline. They don't want that. Let's say you said some choice words at or around Johnny. They don't want that, right? And so you can't be back and forth with that, because eventually little Johnny figure out this dude don't hold no weight.
That's real though. That's right.
No weight. I have a good friend of mine. He met a young lady. She had kids. Kids meaning, I think the last two boys was 18 and 20. And he was like, yeah, we're gonna get a place together, blase. He asked me what I thought, and I told him. And less than a year later, the whole thing bubbled over. They had little small jobs, but some things happened in the household, because it's gonna happen. And all of a sudden, it was some real nasty things that went on in the house. I can't hear you.
It had to do with the kid.
The kid, yeah. The boy, the boy, he got puffy chest with him. He said something to the boy. Boy bucked up on the kitchen, how these young guys do. And my friend wasn't having it. And they had a situation in the kitchen. Now the mama running there, that's my baby, but this is my dude. But he's not wrong because what had happened. Long story short, they're not together anymore. But that was, I would say, a large percentage of why they're not together was the kids.
Wow.
Large percentage. The cops got called and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And again, that's a hard position, I think, for a mom to be in. Vanita, as a mom, how would you even deal with, I know you personally, you wouldn't even put yourself in that situation, but what advice can you give for women who may be in a situation where they have a mate, they're in love, they want to go forward with the mate, but your child may not be into it, or your child might not be on board. Let's just say teenage child. Your teenage child might not be on board. How or what advice would you give to reconcile that? Do you not date? Do you let the relationship go? Do you let him go? Or do you you deal with your child? Like, how do you handle that?
For me, if I was put in a scenario, I think I would, first of all, I have to look at how much do I respect the dude myself, because that's going to play on how everything flows.
That's important.
So if I feel like this is a stand-up dude, someone that, I'm willing to bring around my child in the house and all that good stuff, we all gonna sit down and have a conversation, and respectfully, the child is allowed to speak their piece and tell my guy exactly how she feels on whatever she's feeling at the time. And then for me, because my daughter's father is in her life, he would also be at the table too, so that he can understand everything that's going on all the way around. Now, after this conversation has been had, and I perceive that everything is hashed out and the child understands, my daughter understands, I will have a sad conversation with her to let her know, even in the event that you still may not like him, what you will do under my roof is respect him. So if he tells you to do something, that is what you're going to do, unless it's something not well towards you, something to harm someone else. But if we talking, he said, put them dishes up, you better put them dishes up. And if you did not like that, then you need to come have a conversation with me, and we will all revisit the table and have a conversation again.
I think that's fair. What do you think about that, Karina?
I think Benita is right, because that's one of the reasons why when me and my son's father broke up, besides getting myself together, I couldn't see myself bringing a man into the household, not because I was afraid or anything like that. I just figured if a man was going to stay around and we were going to have a relationship, that's when you get to meet my son. But like V said, there will already be rules in place. Like if he tells you, yo, you need to clean your room up, you better clean your room. Because it's the same thing I would tell you, only difference is him. So I'm in agreement with Benita. Like, we get to the table, we talk, this, that, and the other. My son would know, okay, XYZ is coming into this house. They've met each other before he walks into this house. I think children, whether they're girls or boys, they have this thing for their mother.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like Lou said, like that buck. I'd be like, look, if you're going to buck, you're going to buck with me before you even get to him. Because they need to understand, like, okay, me and your father are not together anymore. My life goes on.
Yeah.
So my life goes on. This is the person I've chosen to come into my life, our life. And if you've grown, shoot, in the next year or two, you're going to be out of this anyway. So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait till you decide to leave? No.
So you would give your son an ultimatum?
Would I give my son an ultimatum if the guy said, look, we getting married?
Yes.
I know my son. If I told my son he coming in, he moving in, all this stuff, my son would want to run. He'd be like, yo, it's time for me to go.
Gotcha.
Hey, mom. You know me with. He was like, hey, mom, look, I saw this apartment here. You know, I got XYZ towards the security. Can I get the difference? He will want to run. I know my child. He will want to run. He want to run right now, and I don't have nobody. He'd be like this. Oh, hell no. It's on me. Pew. Okay, mom. Bye. Love you. Okay, see you later. Yo, he will run. Okay, my son will run. Whereas some kids be like, no, I'm staying right here. My son be like, no, it's time for me to get out. Lo, I gotta run.
Bryce would say, I ain't got time for all this extra stuff. I gotta get out of here.
What? He's saying that now, like, look, I'm 20. What's going on? I need to do this. I need to do that. I said, look, you are where you are supposed to be. You trying everything. You are where you're supposed to be right now. When it's time for you to do what you do.
Would you ever give him an ultimatum?
Would I give my son an ultimatum?
Yeah.
Over a man? No. Because
gotcha.
I feel the same way as I do about my girlfriends. Since we grown, dick and pussy will come and go.
Gotcha.
But good friendships, my blood, like there's no guarantee me and that dude is gonna work out. If we don't work out, and I don't turn around and kick my son out, kick my daughter out, whatever, over this dude, you think they're gonna? Let me tell you something. I'm having to do some major ass kissing for them to. you know what I'm saying, mother and all, to be like, oh, I'm sorry that now you want that nigga, fuck that. You stay with that nigga. Yeah. No.
And Lou, I told you this is the dilemma. The biggest dilemma I see with moms are when it comes to men that is not the father of their child. A lot of women be terrified that the child is gonna think that they mama chose a man over them, even if the kids are grown. See how she described it? Like, I don't want my child to think that da. That's which is why you run into what you run into, because you really don't want your kids to think that.
And we men see that, we hear it, we feel that energy, and it makes us be choppy dealing with women with kids.
I agree with Karina. I wouldn't kick my son out over a man.
Yeah, most women feel that way.
I didn't have to make that choice, but you have to let the man know that already. I mean, I would hate for it to get to that point, but I wouldn't kick my son out over a man. I just wouldn't do it.
So let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to use the word kick him out. Let's say that they are on a journey to become in a committed relationship with the possibility of marriage. Okay, let's say that he's not just the guy you're dating or the guy you go to the movies with. At some point, you all, or a woman, will have to have a conversation with the man about what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Go ahead.
But you also going to have to have that same conversation with your child or children about that. So if he's been good so far, if he's like great with the kid or kids, right? And just because I've seen this, the man's going to take away the focus and the attention on that child or children. But other than that, they're fine with him taking them to Disney World and doing all this other stuff. And let's go here and let's go there. We're going on a trip, family cruise or whatever, right? I get that. And as a mother, we should be able to see that. Like, okay, you like him for all this other stuff. I'm telling you, this is what is about to happen. So unless you turn around and it's love at first sight and you getting married and engaged within a year, no. Usually that's happening probably a year and something after that. But
so I'm speaking of not the Disney kids. I'm speaking of a kid that is old enough.
Wait a minute. I love Disney. I don't want to tell y'all how old I am, but I'm saying like some kids.
I'm saying the kids being Disney. I'm talking about if you have a grown, he's out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
He's a male.
But when I'm saying, I don't mean specifically Disney. I mean just like vacations, family vacations, stuff y'all go to, and it's like, okay, because I don't know if it's 9 times out of 10, but 50-50, he might have his own kids. So it's like, okay, let's bring my kid or my kids and bring them together with your kids because we can see this happen between you and I. So I don't necessarily need Disney per se. I just gave an example like, okay, we go on a cruise, we go on someplace, it's a family vacation, everybody's together and everything's great until that point comes where, and no, they can feel it because they know their mama. Okay, I think the mom really likes this dude. And it might be something where, okay, is he going to move in if he hasn't yet? Okay, you have to sit down and have that conversation. They can't be, okay, I think he's great, whatever. Okay, all of a sudden, no, he's going to take away my mom. Some kids feel that way.
Wait a minute, are we talking, because y'all both said adults out of the house, are we talking that the adult?
So
the adults are still in the house.
I'm speaking of an adult male being in the house.
In the house.
And you're dating his mother.
Okay.
At some point, if it's going into a committed relationship / marriage, the mother and the guy she's dating would need to have a slight conversation about what is little Johnny doing. It could be just an inquiry about what is he going to do. Because if the man is going to potentially propose to her, he's not wanting, more than likely, he's not wanting to take on little Johnny if he don't see little Johnny's not doing anything. Now, I'll speak more back to Lou specifically. Lou's going to need to know. What is little Johnny doing? Is little Johnny going to become the manager at Burger King? Is little Johnny going to go into the service? Is he going to school? Is he going? What is he doing? Because if I'm looking at you as my potential committed relationship / wife, this ain't gonna work for me, little Johnny, in the house like this.
And that's how a lot of men feel.
It's not gonna work.
So at what age do you start to worry about that? Now, if the child is 15 and 16 and 17.
Remember, Lee, I said he's out of high school.
Okay, so I understand that point, because if he's out of high school and you guys are talking about marriage, then also on the flip side of that, the man should not be worried about where the son gonna go. He need to be worried about where that woman coming to.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry about where the son going, because that's not your responsibility.
Let's go with that.
See?
You saying that's Lou Casa over there? Is that what you saying, Lou?
Now then,
little Johnny, he can't come here.
At that point, you have that right. But if you're talking about, oh, where your son gonna go and I'm coming there, you don't have that to worry about. So that conversation is this way. Your son cannot come with us. Now, I'm concerned about what's going to happen with him. Because if I'm going to marry you and you're going to come live with me, then I don't want your grown son to come. That's a conversation that a good woman would understand. But if you're talking about where your son going to go because I'm coming in, that's not a conversation at all.
So here's my scenario. I have a house for you. I have made a way for us.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Lou?
I have made a way for us. Come here. But
that's what conversations have to be had.
Huh?
That's why conversations have to be had, because you need to establish that.
But what happens with women is the mother's guilt. I mean, that's my baby. I understand that's your baby. He just can't come here. Not and do what he's doing at your house. Now,
if he's grown, I totally agree with that. You can't take your grown son to another grown man's house.
I've applied to go into the military. I just got to wait 3 months. Well, you know, little Johnny, you can come stay for 3 months. I need to see the papers that you signed that you're going in. Right?
Okay. All right. So, Lou. Okay. So we understand this. All right. So we're talking about, okay, the military is somewhat still viable. But then you think about all the things that you see on social media, kids learn, do, things like that. I'll say this, only because I'm speaking from experience.
Okay.
So I have a mother. Oh my God. I love my mom. I do love my mom. Who has an older daughter, a daughter there, my younger sister, and my little brother. But my thing is like, okay, she's grown, she was married, she's divorced, she got another kid. When does that time come? But I digress. But
when does what time come?
To say, like you said, like, all right, my mother's gonna have relationships, or she's gonna do a thing. She's retired. But I say that in the context of, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I say it in the context to say that with Lily, like, if we come in, you coming to me, or he's coming to you. I don't know about.
So, I would encourage, and this goes back to raising a boy into a man.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage a young boy to have his own. And so when he goes out into the world and he's presenting himself to a woman, he
Mm-hmm.
has those things. He can provide shelter, security, protection. He's already taken care of himself. Because that's something that you all gravitate towards in a man,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we gravitate towards that, but I'm saying it in the context of with everything going on, rents, recession, all this stuff. Like before, it was so much easier to have. Okay, me and my homeboy, we're gonna be roommates. We can afford the rent. Now it's something like it's just totally different. And I'm not making excuses,
Right.
but even if you see articles in the news, they're telling you like, oh, millennials, this, that, generation, whatever, they're coming back and moving back in with their parents.
Right.
And we're talking about people like my age, 50s, 40s, 30s, moving back in with their parents because guess what? That job that they thought was going to get them where they needed to go is not getting them there anymore. So,
Okay. So let me bestow a true story upon you.
mm-hmm.
My son has been gone for 2 years on his own.
Okay.
The latter part of the summer, he calls me. He says, "Hey, Dad, I'd like to come back to Atlanta." I said, "Oh, really? Yeah, okay, that's great. Right? That's great." Yeah, I was wondering, like, could I stay with you? I said, "Oh, for how long? And what's your plan?" Is he would like to purchase something for himself,
Okay.
a home, townhouse, house, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, in 6 months, I don't know if you'll be able to turn that around that fast. You might." But I said, "You know what? I'll give you a year. You can come home for a year. But while you're here, I'm gonna need you to shoot me something because you can't stay here for free, right? You can't stay for free."
Yeah.
And I said, "And you can't be going more than your dad go. Somebody's passport got to get some dust on it."
No. If he's shooting you something,
What?
nobody's passport has to collect dust. If
No.
like, look, when I used to stay with my mother, right?
Go ahead.
It wasn't like, okay, Karina, pay me rent. I used to go buy food. I would pay a bill or a few bills, right? Hit her off with some money. But she was, and I always asked my mother, why is it that you never demand that I pay rent? She's like, Karina, because one thing, I don't ever want to be dependent on the money that you give me. So whatever you give me and you pay something, thank you. But I can do that without you. I don't ever want to have to depend on you for that.
And that's great, and that's commendable. And in the Lewis household, he's going to continue to feel responsibility upon himself.
Okay.
I don't need my money when you get around to it. We have a date, just like the rent man. We have a date. That I need to have that. I need to see it. You can cash app it to me. You can write me a check, leave it on my bed. You can bring me cash in an envelope, but on that date, that's what I need to happen.
Well, okay, so Lou, you know your son, right? So you know that he can still dust off his passport, still give you whatever you need, and still turn around within a year and probably buy whatever he wants and leave.
I don't ever want his focus to be off of what he's focusing on. Because it's too many side things I hear that can, there's women out here.
It's just women. That's a side thing. Women is the side thing. Traveling, whatever, is not the side thing. Women is
traveling. You can meet a woman, so something could happen. So I need to stay focused on what you said you was gonna do, which was you said you wanted to get a place, and that's what you need to focus on. Period.
I think that's the difference between a lot of men and women too, Lou. Just like W. O'Neal 75, Fat Boy said, it's a battle of cultures. A woman culture with her kids and a man structure, of leadership being instilled in the household. I think particularly when it's not the father of the kids, it's a real battle for a lot of women to say, you need to do this and you need to do that. again, because in her mind is, or you're a mom that you're choosing a man over your kids. Women don't look at it kind of like you do, whereas no, you're pushing him out so that he can learn how to be a man and stand on his own. Women don't
Right.
look at it like that.
Right.
Women don't look at it like that. I had a couple of, not a couple, but I'm gonna read a couple of my comments from Facebook when I announced I was gonna do this show. Fentress, which is a guy, he said, easy, kick the perfect man to the curb. Them kids is 1-to-1 connections that are irreplaceable. It's 8 billion people in the world, the whole world. A perfect man can be anywhere and everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. What do you think about that, Lee Allison?
First of all, I think there's no perfect man.
Gotcha.
So you have to start off from that. This man that you have to evaluate. It's a lot of things that play into this. And one is the length of time that you've known this person, and the length of time this person have known your child or your adult son or whatever, like the relationship between you and whoever you plan on marrying, especially when you have children, should be a built relationship. It shouldn't be something that just started. That means your child should also have a relationship with this man by this time. If this man is worthy of asking you to marry him and he's the one that you chose, then guess what? He chose what came along with you. Now, with that child, that adult son being in your house, I can understand how complicated that may be based on how you raised your son. First of all, if your son is respectable and he has a relationship with that man, then that man may not be so apt to say, oh, he got to go.
Yeah.
Right now, he may say, let's talk. And also, if your son's father is in his life, if he's not, and you got a new man coming in that you've had a relationship with for a length of time, then that your son is going to respect that man enough to know, I got to step out the way. I got to get my own. I got to move on. They'll be on one accord with, in agreement with things. So I think that'll make it a lot easier. I didn't relate to that dude's question, but that's the way I feel about that particular situation.
Absolutely. Definitely. And I'll read the next one. Arnetta said basically there's a limit on how long she's a mom. She has a daughter, I think, and there's like 16 or 17. There's a limit on how long you stay, regardless if there's a man involved or not. He's 25. She's done her job. It's time for her to live her own life. What you say, V?
I agree.
You agree?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I listen. I feel like we have to raise them to be independent, male or female. Again, tomorrow is not promised, so I feel like you should do everything that you can. Where if you stepped out of the picture, can they maintain exactly what you have going on in that household? They need to understand what that is, so that they can apply that to their own life when they get out in the world. All the way down to what Lou say. If you're an adult and you need to come back to the house, no problem. But what's your plan? And run me my rent.
Absolutely. Virginia,
whatever that amount is, run me that. Whatever I come to, run me my ends. I'm gonna need it. Like he said, same thing Lou said. Listen, my mortgage person say rent is due on this day. I'm gonna need it on that day.
Yeah, because I think that's because you got to keep them being responsible. If you let them slide, like I agree with Lou when he said somebody's passport got to get dust on it, and it's not going to be mine. Because if they doing all the fun things, then why you doing these fun things? That money could be paying your rent.
Listen, you could be stacking up the ends. You could be stacking those ends up to secure a security nest for yourself.
That's right.
Because life happens. Life happens. Mm-hmm. You lose jobs. When you lose jobs, you don't get the same amount of money flowing in. You need to know how to handle those situations. It's no joke. Adulting is real, real, real.
Matt Turner says, marriage to a woman with this situation wouldn't even be an option for me. what type of time you on that your grown sons ain't out preparing to be the husband that you ain't got? Whatever mentally allowed this is sure to be an issue later on. What say
Now-
you, Lou?
That goes back to what I was saying when we first started. I once asked a woman this question. She was talking about how her son doesn't do this. He don't clean up. He don't keep no job. He don't have no hustle about him to do anything. And I asked her. I said, "Well, would you marry your son if that was possible? Like, she like, hell no." I said, "Why?" She said, "He's sorry." I said, "So why are you letting a man in your household?" Because you all women don't want to. If a man said he didn't work, he lived with his mama, he had no car, he wouldn't get the time of day from you all women that are available. He wouldn't. And so when you feed into that narrative of letting that go on under your roof, you're feeding into these sorry men.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make your skin crawl, but it's a fact. It's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, if you meet a man, he said, "Yeah, bro, I work for the Atlanta Hawks. I live out in Marietta. I got a crib out there. I got 2 cars. Blah blah blah. Whatever that is." Yeah, but we like, yeah, we can go out because he's doing his own thing,
Yeah.
and that's just a fact. That's what and it's fair. It's nothing bad about it, because men will say this, and I've heard this on the show. I want a woman to submit to me, and I'm a king, and I'm this, that, and the third. How can she submit when you live with your mama? That's a question.
I mean, that's real. That's real. That's real. Danon says, marry and live a great life, or keep taking care of 2 grown men and die alone. Which one, ladies?
I want to live a great life personally.
Great life. I want a great life. I want to live my best
I'm about
life.
the great life.
I want
I'm
my
about the
best
great
life, great life. I want all that.
Mm-hmm.
Nario said at that age they shouldn't even be there. And I wouldn't blame him for this stance, especially if they are sons.
Yeah, 27, 28 is kind of old. I figure 21, 22. Yeah.
I have a question. Oh, okay. Well, you just answered it. Lee Allison, what do you think the cutoff age should be?
I don't. Well, when they old enough to like 21, I don't think there should be I'm not going to say cut off age. It depends on where you're at in life. If you're dating and you're serious and you're ready to get married, it's a time for your child to leave the nest.
Does it have to be a case, Lily, where you're about to get married before they leave?
No, I mean, it just depends on where you are as that woman in life and where your child is and what they're doing while they're in their home. So if they're at home just kicking it, not doing nothing, then hey, yeah, you need to get up and get out. If you're in school, you're going to get your degree, and you at home, I'm at home, ain't nothing else going on, then okay, it's okay that you're here because you're working towards something. As long as you're working towards something, now if you already got it, it's time to go. Or if you at home and you chilling, no. But if you're working towards something, and I'm at home, I'm a woman, I'm working, I'm not seriously dating or anything like that, then it's okay. So I think it's a case-by-case situation. It's not like it's a cutoff age to me. It's a case-by-case situation. It depends on what the young man or your son is doing at the time with their life.
Realtor Team Coach says on Instagram, my Instagram follower says, my wife has 2 sons, 23 and 27. They live with us. And when I try to talk to them about getting their own places, she says that I hate her kids and that I'm jealous of her 20-year-old son. I love her, but I asked for a divorce.
Ooh. Yeah, but wait a minute. My whole thing is like, all right, they're 23 and 27, you said?
Uh-huh.
Shit.
This is his current
Wait a
situation.
minute. Y'all been living together this whole time. Y'all can get your own apartment together, right? Like, okay, let me find you some shit. Y'all working. Go over here, get your own. You got two as brothers. Y'all can live together. If y'all can't live together as adults, y'all been living together in mama's house as adults. So yeah, I can understand where he's coming from with the divorce. Cause no. He married her already and they still not going.
Yeah. And Sam says, I don't know about these commenters below. Sam is a woman. That the economy is ridiculous. There are people getting evicted and staying in toxic relationships because they can't afford to pay rent or the payment on time. I would need to know what's going on before I agree to kick my kids out. It's so interesting reading the responses from men versus their responses from women. Women are like, what? Kick my kids? And then they're like, kick their grown asses. Oh, it's crazy.
Here's what happened from a man's perspective. He's going to incur paying more bills because her kids are in the household.
That's the biggest thing I hear with men and dating women with kids.
And so what happens over a period of time, he's going to feel some type of way because one of the days ain't going to be enough fried chicken. One of the days, the electric bill going to be through the roof. One of the days, the grass going to need to get cut. One of the days, him and the mama going to argue and the boys going to buck up. But they in the house that he's paying a lot of money in. And these things will happen. And so to prevent them from happening, little Johnny needs to go about his business. Because little Johnny said there should be a plan for him. He can't just be up in here like that. He can't. It's gonna cause some friction. And as far as like a woman that's had kids, she deserves a life.
Thank you, Lou.
She deserves a life.
Thank you.
And baby boy, there's a movie. Baby boy needs to go on by his business and let mama, let Ben Raines come in the kitchen and cook you some breakfast.
I would agree 100%. And I'm gonna read this last. Go ahead, Luke.
And so having a young man like that in the house, it's gonna be some bump in the heads.
Yeah. Almost every
So wait a minute.
What?
Lou was going back to the 26 and 27-year-old. I would like to address the comment from the last one you just read.
Okay.
The economy is difficult. I agree with that. But every last one of the individuals that's on this show right now is able to hold it down on their own. So it's possible. I think that women tend to use any excuse in the world to say why it's okay for your grown kids to stay in the house. It's a choice at the end of the day. Go ahead, Lou.
Let me add to what you're saying. For a man, a young man, not to be able to get some money, legal money, it's a choice.
That way.
I've gone jobs I've had. I've worked at McDonald's. I've flipped burgers. I've dug ditches. I've cut grass. I've bagged groceries. I've delivered papers. These are all things that in the young 20s you can do. They just choose not to do them. I don't want to do that, Mama. I mean, no, you can go do that.
And beyond, to piggyback off of what Lou's saying right now, in my 20s, I had 3 jobs. You can do it if you want to.
That's true.
It is a choice
That's
on
true.
how you want to move.
I'm gonna read this last comment and we can go ahead and wrap it up. This great show, great insight, all types of different perspectives. My Instagram friend TS Hamilton 95 is a man. He says, "Man, those dudes damn near 3 decades old. These mothers need to stop enabling these boys and put them out the house. Not just for them, but for her as well. She's not doing these boys any favors. She just hurting them.
That way.
A stark
true.
difference between men
That's true.
and
That part.
women as far as how they feel about the situation. There is very interesting in the vibe, but whatever the woman decides, just be okay with the choice. That's all I say. Just be able to live with the choice, whether you say y'all got to go or you choose to sacrifice the relationship. I just say just be good within your soul about whatever choice you make. That's anything. So when you make a choice, just be good. Just be good with the consequences. That's all I say. Whatever that may be. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and close out. We're about an hour and 15 minutes in.
Before you go in, Nika, I think Karina has something to add on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as far as that last comment that he made, as like with men, me, myself, and my son, he's 20. He wants to get the fuck out of here. He's like, oh, I'm not doing stuff as a man. But the funny thing he doesn't realize is all the things that I taught him to be on his own, he already has them. He just didn't at the point where he needed to use them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm home, I cook, I clean. He cleans his room, he cleans and stuff like that. He does that. But to like really be on his own. Like, I gave him an example. When I go away for vacation, because the first time I thought I was going to lose my mind. Like, as long as you don't burn the house down. But when I came home, the house was clean, the dishes was clean, the bathroom was clean, his room was clean, everything was great. I said, I left. I know you didn't sit here and stand still in one place. I know you moved, cleaned your room, did everything you did. Yeah, I did. So those things, you have them. And I think sometimes too, as our children, man, boy, girl, just like us, they're a little afraid. You know what I'm saying? It's scary. Because I know when I went out there, it was scary. I was like, fuck that, I'm going to do this. But it was still scary, So just with that comment, like, yeah, that's just my part of it, take of it.
D, what's your closing remarks?
Make the best choice and be happy with whatever your choice is at the end of the day.
You, Lee Allison?
I would say to choose, when you're choosing yourself, that means you're choosing what you want. You're not basing off of what the ultimatum that this man that you are about to marry or have asked you your hand in marriage or want to marry you. It's because you're gonna be the one that's gonna deal with the consequences, whether the man stays or the man leave. So you got to choose really what you want.
Absolutely. And final closing remarks from Lou.
So I don't think you should put a man over your kids, right? But if, as a woman and as a person in general, you deserve to be happy. And eventually, at some point in time, your kids are going to move on. But somebody may come into your life, a man may come into your life, and you should try to make yourself as available as possible and as attractive as possible to him. And from a man's perspective, when women have, and I'm specifically saying grown men in their house, is not a good look, because it makes us be like, ooh, I don't want to deal with that. Because we know what's going to come with that. And we know what we had to do to be able to stand in front of you initially to ask you out. Because if I'm him, which is your son, you wouldn't entertain me. So when I look at your son, I know what I see. And it doesn't get any better the longer it goes on. At 18, leading up to 18, there has to be a plan, no matter what. And yeah, it may be a little tough. Maybe you gotta eat some ramen noodles. Maybe you gotta eat some mayonnaise sandwiches, but you'll be all right. I promise. I promise you'll be okay. And later on, your mom will be like, man, look at my son. And some woman will look at your son the same way. Like, man, I think he made a good husband. But if he sit around and sit around and sit around, that's what you're going to have.
And on that note, we'll go ahead and close out. Thank you all. Always. I'm always so appreciative of just being able to call my friends and say, can you come on tonight? And they're like, I'm there. That's really a blessing. I appreciate you all more than you know. Thank you for everybody who's watching, whether you're watching on Facebook, wherever you may be watching. Thank you, as always, for your support. I appreciate it. Thank you to my beautiful co-host, Vanita, who always shows up even when she's sleeping. I appreciate y'all. Once again, we do this show every Wednesday, 7:30. That's some smoldering hot topics. We got a good one for you next week. So join us next week, same time, same place. I would definitely like to have my guests back for another show. I want to do a female male panel soon because they're always fun. You know, 5 women, 5 men, and we chop it up. So it's definitely on the calendar. So again, thank you. If you're new, please subscribe, like the video. It's a new channel, so we're trying to grow the channel. And yeah, have a good night, and I will see you next Wednesday. Thank you, guys.
Have a
Good
good
night.
evening.